Hi guys, PJ here. Today we are working on a 2016 Ford Focus. This particular one's the actual ST model, so the fuse box on these is pretty stacked out with all the optional extras, etc. Now the reason I'm doing this video, on top of the other Ford Focus video that I've got on my playlist that you'll be able to look at, is because this particular one is using a Kenwood camera. Now the Kenwood cameras, along with a few others like Garmin, etc., have two power supplies needed. They need an ignition switch power supply and a constant live power supply. You'll notice if you've looked at the other video that I've done, it's the next base camera and then an ignition switched. So thought I'd show you this one. Be a quick video, I'll be straight to the point, won't waste your time with it. Now these Kenwood cameras, you can buy a wiring kit to go to the fuse box. In the wiring kit you will get fuse spurs of all different sizes, and these are like little doubler sockets for fuses, so you can pull a fuse out your fuse box and double the socket up so it taps off the power supply for your camera. Ford Focus of around this year should be a mini blade fuse, which is this size. You also get the larger fuse, which is still in use, but more older cars or commercial use, to be honest with you. Don't need that. And we also, there we go, have a spare one, look, a couple of spares. So obviously you've got the switched power. Put them away, the spare ones. So we need two mini blades, one for switched, one for permanent live. Put them to one side. Camera itself, of course, quite a nice camera. Decent resolution on these ones. You don't want to get anything that's low resolution. You won't be able to zoom in and see number plates if you need to, which is quite important if somebody crashes into you. Stay above 1080p. This one's actually 2K. This is pretty high spec camera, nice image on this one, but 1080p and above is fine. 720p, not too bad, but when you zoom in, especially in the evening or at night, you'll notice your number plates are a bit tricky to read. Okay, you also get in the box sticky mount to stick the camera on the windscreen with, and the wire. This is the power cable on one end. I can find the end for you. Oh, it's vanished, it's gone. There we go. Little plug that plugs into the camera to supply power to it, and on the other end you've got some bare wires. So we have power wire number 1, red wire there, power wire number 2, and black wire, earth wire. We'll just connect that to the vehicle's chassis earth. So the first thing we're going to do is get the camera end of the cable, like so. We'll knot it, of course, it's got knotted up there, don't want that. And what I'm going to do is wrap 3 cable ties around it at periodic places and then snip them. It's to bulk the wire out, make it a little bit wider, so when you shove it above the headlining it doesn't fall down in front of your view when you hit one of the lovely big potholes that are scattered around. So I'll go ahead and do that now and show you what I mean. Okay, so we're at the top of the vehicle here, windscreen here, headlining, and as you can see we put some cable ties around the cable there and covered them in electrical tape. It's just because when you snip the end off it can be quite sharp, the edge. Your headlining's only like a cardboard fibre substance, and basically you don't want it rubbing into the back of it over a period of time, so it's just to pad it out a little bit, nothing major. Now to get the cable up behind there you can only use your fingers. Be careful with it, don't go at it like a bull in a china shop. Take your time, it's only a fibre substance, you don't want to crack it, so just ease it down slightly and tuck one of your little lugs that you've made, the middle one here I've done, up into it. So you just grab hold of it and ease it in. You can normally put your finger under the headlining without damaging it. There we go. And you want to sort of leave 2 or 3 inches. It showed my age, didn't it? In the inches there rather than centimetres, but there you go. A couple of inches drop down, ready to go to the top of the camera, yeah? Because the camera will be going here, stuck to the black surface looking down below at the front corners of the bonnet. So work your way along, get your power cable all the way. Be a bit easier for you guys, you'll be using 2 hands instead of using 1. I'll tidy that up in a sec. When we get to here, this corner, all we're going to do is get that. They're normally quite tight. Sorry guys, the camera sway there while I pull whistle. There you go. Just pull it off. Normally with them being quite new, they're quite stiff, and then you can normally get your fingers and just sort of lever it a little bit, yeah? So leave a bit of a loop, drop it over the edge here. Now I've had a few people in the past say, well, there's an airbag behind that. Yep, your airbag starts about here downwards. This is going to be looped at the top edge, so it'll be nowhere near it. And to be honest with you, in the past I've test deployed airbags for safety reasons and what have you. If the airbag goes off, it will certainly move a little bit, tiny bit of cable out of the way, I assure you of that. but your cable's not going to be in the way, it'll be above it, just up here. So go ahead and tuck it down the edge. There are some useful tools for doing these jobs that I'll quickly point out. And that is, obviously, electrical tape, we've already used it. Plastic leverage device. It's called a bojo tool, this particular one, and it is firm plastic on the ends. Now you'll be using this to lever the end off your dashboard and maybe levering that door trim off that we've just struggled with. Do not use a metal screwdriver, you will 100% certainly damage the trim. You don't want to do that, this needs to look factory fitted. These things are about £1, they're off eBay or Amazon, you normally get a pack of 3. You could use any old plastic scraper, just don't use metal, you will cause damage. You don't want to do that, okay? Very handy. Obviously you're going to need a multimeter. If you haven't got a multimeter, you could use one of them little test screwdrivers with a bulb in, so when you touch a circuit it lights up, either of which will do fine. I'm using an old multimeter here. And we're going to move on now to, funnily enough, using one of the tools I've just pointed out. So we need to get off this panel here. This panel's on clips all the way around the edge, and all we do is put the little leverage device in and pop, yeah, all the way around. Now I'm going to need both hands to catch the panel before it lands on the floor, so we'll go from there. There you go, there's all your clips nicely on show. They've all popped out, we've pulled the rubber trim off, pulled the lower one a little bit, not too far. Then we can just lift that away nicely. Now what that does is exposes 10mm bolts that we can use for an earthing point. Now we're going to take one of those out and use that as the earthing point for the black wire on the cable. So we'll be connecting it to here. So get your 10mm ratchet out, take the bolt out, and away we go for an earth. Just worth a quick mention while you're taking this bolt out, just watch it doesn't fall and go straight down here, because they're a right little sod to get back out again. You have to pull the plastic trim off to get to it, so normally support it, or pack a bit of electrical tape in the end of your socket so it grips the screw when you take it out, bolt rather. We've prepared the cable, so there's the earth cable with the ring terminal on the end of it, ready to go for an earth. So I'll continue taking this bolt out and then show you when it's actually fitted. So there's the bolt out, quite a long bolt. Don't worry, your dashboard won't move anywhere. There's quite substantial things still holding it in place. In fact, if you look there, there's another big bolt here, so it's not going to go anywhere, okay? So we put our earth ring on. I put another washer on behind it just to sandwich it so that when you tighten it up, it doesn't spin the thing round and snap it, okay? Also spaces it out nicely for pressuring it out in the hole that is here. So it's like a square hole, so you want it to go over it rather than in it. Now we put this back in and that is your earth finished. And now we've done that, we move on to the fuse box. Now I'll quickly just point out that by following this video guide I am held in no way responsible or liable for injury to yourself or damage to your vehicle. Okay, sorry about to put that in guys, but I've had a few clowns try it on over the years and I'm just trying to help people. Right, Ford put the fuse box in a really accessible place for old people like me, right up under here. It's got some plastic lugs, you pull them off. Like so, pop the trim down, and there's your fuse box. So what we're going to be looking for is an accessory circuit that goes on and off with the ignition, and a permanent live circuit, okay? Now we want circuits that are non-critical, so we don't want to be tapping into anything to do with ECU, ABS, airbags or anything like that. So what we're going to do is go along and test the fuses. So the first thing we're going to do with our multimeter or test probe is look for an ignition switched fuse. With the ignition off and your other test probe, the black test probe, earthed out, just go ahead. I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds of these cars, so pretty used to it. This 7.5 amp that I'm going to use here. There we go, 0 voltage, ignition off. That particular fuse goes live when you put the ignition on. That's an ideal switched ignition on this one. And I've also got another one that's permanent live. There we go. Job done. So they're the two fuses that I'll be using. Both on this particular vehicle accessory circuits. Now that's an important note there. I do say this particular vehicle, depending what country they're shipped to, what specification they are and what year build date they are, fuse box locations for things can vary a lot. You will need to test your own fuses. So simply do what I've just shown you. Keep the ignition off, test the fuses. If the fuse is 0 voltage, brilliant. Turn the ignition on, test it again. You should then get a readout of 12 or 11 point something on here showing you that it's ignition switched. Turn the ignition off again, go back to 0. That'll be your ignition switch source. So like I say, right now ignition off, we're on 0 volts. Touch the cap on the fuse, still 0. If we go to turn the ignition on, ignition is now on. Sorry guys, get the camera in focus. I'm standing on my head here trying to get to this. There we go. Same fuse, yeah. And like I say, for constant power, we're going to be using that accessory circuit there. Okay, so we've crimped our fuse spurs on. Okay. Now, red being the ignition switched, and yellow here, which has got an inline fuse, is constant live. It's got an inline fuse, obviously, because it's live all the time. Camera comes with some fuses, they're normally 2 or 3 amps, and what you do is plug them in, so you get your fuse spur, and put them on the outer edge socket. These run the camera, yeah? So the outer socket, like so. And then the fuse you remove from the fuse box goes on the inner socket. There we go, there's your fuse spurs in, 1, 2. They're just doubled up, like I say, into the sockets there. And then tuck all your cabling up and above all this slot and tidy it up. Before you put your trim back in, we'll test the camera. There we go, with camera mounted, we've got a nice clear view of the corners of the bonnet. Power cable nicely tucked away. You want a factory fit finish so you can't see anything dangling down, yeah? All the way around there. Okay, so we'll turn the ignition on, moment of truth. And there we go, one start-up screen. Little charge light on the side there. Turn that off again. All is good. Now we can go back and reassemble the side of the dash. So we've tidied it all up. We've actually wrapped it in a cable tie. Took the excess cable out of the way behind the dashboard, so it's all nice and neat. And then we're going to get the end trim, which, like I say, it's on clips. Very straightforward. It just basically shoves into position, which I'm not going to be able to do one-handed. Oh yes I am, there we go. So hook it in, there's little hooks there, and then give it a good tap, which I won't do one-handed. Oh, there we go. Bash, bash, bash all the way around, and then put your trim back on, shove that on all the way home. And that is how you fit a dash cam on a Ford Focus 2016 model. If you've got any questions regarding this or any other vehicle, drop them in the comments below. Please understand, however, I get a lot of questions asked every single day, so I'll do my best to answer quickly, but sometimes it can take me a day. If you're going to send me a question asking where to buy items from, at least try Google or Amazon or something first, because normally I'll just send you a link to where you can get them from, and it's very time consuming. Thanks for understanding, guys, much appreciated. See you again next time. Bye.